Okay, hi everyone. I promised you a market on the housing, a video, excuse me, on the housing market and inventory and what my thoughts are. And so here it is. First of all, I'm seeing, and I think some of you are, maybe some subtle changes in the market as far as inventory, as far as buyers pulling back, just different things along these lines. To give you an idea, in the first quarter of 2021, Alexandria Homes actually had a price decrease. Okay, all others had somewhat of a fluctuation from anywhere from 5 to 48%. And actually from February 2020 to February 2021, five of the areas in which we work had price decreases. So let me give you some thoughts. I want to discuss some thoughts and observations as far as this is concerned. So let's talk about interest rates. Interest rates were at a historic low. Now they've started to rise back up. Some people in the purchase arena think, well, I'm going to hold off and maybe we'll get some interest rates going down. I don't think so. We're seeing higher interest rates, and they are creeping up. Having talked to a couple of different lenders who will not commit, but have talked about the fact that they believe that interest rates will be stable for a little bit, but are going to continue and a trend to increase. So, but in general, they're still historically low, right? Based on what our normal interest rates were over the past number of years. I was fortunate enough to buy my second home at 19% interest, so that was a real treasure. But anyway, lower interest rates means the buyer can afford more. Okay, so lower interest, buyers can afford more for the payment that they may have been expecting to pay before. So I think that lends itself to the prices increasing because buyers are able to afford more. Okay, they're able to afford not only more based on the payment, but they're looking at the prospect of, again, could be a problem, homes appreciating and appreciating quickly. So the other thing is that when it comes down to buy versus rent, in many cases, it's either the same amount to buy or rent, or buying is less expensive than renting. Plus, you get the tax deduction and everything along these lines. So again, buying becomes more attractive, which puts more buyers in the buying arena. Okay. In addition to that, we're seeing a lot of first-time home buyers. Okay, and many of them are millennials or Gen Y. So when people go, millennials, you got to remember millennials basically started from 1980 to basically 1994, 95, and it fluctuates back and forth. So my oldest son is going to be 42 this year. So he is a millennial, essentially. So remember, millennials, when we talk about them, and some of you are, when people talk about them, you're talking about people in their early 40s and into their 30s, okay? So millennials and Gen Y are starting to buy more homes. They're starting to be interested in that more so than they have in the past. Now, that's been an increasing trend, okay? But you're also getting people who are entering the buyer market back again because they may have had short sales or foreclosures before and not wanted to get into that market. But again, now are seeing between low interest rates and opportunity for them to buy again, an interest that they're getting back into it. So both of those things has really increased the number of buyers. Okay. So another thing that adds to this is a very high military area and transient area. People come here and come back, et cetera, things like this. So for a VA buyer, to be eligible for a VA loan, the cap, the amount of price for a home is over $700,000 for a VA loan because we're such a high cost area. Okay, in other areas of the country it may be 250. Okay, but in our area it's seven something. So it gives them more ability to use a VA loan to buy properties. So low interest rates, high cap adds even more of those people. Okay, so what do we look at when we are seeing an interest rate increase? Well, obviously, higher interest rates on a loan means higher payments, which means that the consumer, our buyers, are not going to be able to afford the prices that they were. So again, what we're looking at is with all this, the payments going up, buying power diminishes, and I think that's going to contribute eventually to a lowering of prices because people are just not going to be able to afford, as the interest rates go up, that same house with that same price. So to give you an idea, we're going to look at this, in a couple of different ways. If somebody is buying a home and the mortgage is $450,000, principal and interest at 2.75 is $1,837 a month. That's just principal and interest. When the interest rate increases from 2.75, which you're not really getting anymore, to 3.25, which is what I'm seeing more and more of, the principal and interest goes to $1,958. So it's a $121 difference for a 0.5% interest rate. Okay. If the interest rate goes to 4% on that $450,000 mortgage, the payment now is $2,148. That's essentially the same as a $310 car payment that they're now making. So when the mortgage company looks at the different percentages, et cetera, and what they can afford, it has a great impact. So on a $450,000 mortgage, a 1.25 point or 1.25% increase in interest rate increases the payment, principal and interest, by $310. So that's pretty heavy. Another way to look at it is for every 1% rise in interest, it's approximately $1.20 per thousand. So that's a big change. So if you go from 3 to 4 on a $500,000 home, that's $1.20 per thousand. So you do the math with that, okay? So what we're seeing as far as interest rates is because of that, I think we're seeing some people holding back, that they're looking at the option of renting, and maybe that's going to be a little lower price for them to be able to afford than it is with a mortgage. Okay, so people are looking at that. I think that's going to have, the interest rates have an impact on that. We're also seeing some people that are saying, well, wait a minute, interest rates are going up. Let me see where this heads. Now, part of my philosophy is that when interest rates move up, you have a pause of some buyers, and then all of a sudden buyers go, oh, wait a minute, I want to get into this before they get higher. But it's still that increased interest rate has an impact on buyers because it lowers their ability to buy a home at certain prices, okay? So again, that tends to be a problem. We see that becomes, will, I believe, start to pull people either out of the market or look at lower price homes, all right? So it is also going to have an impact because buyers are going to, as buyers start to return to the market once they may hold off because of interest rates, but they're going to be less interested in making aggressive offers, which I think may also change the market. Some other observations from some other people. I talked to a friend of mine who's a good producing agent, and he said that what he's seeing is reload buyers have diminished. In 2019, his business was essentially 90% of his business was reloads. In 2021 so far, it's down to 10% of his business. So that's especially, a strong indicator that we may have a shift. In addition, as I talk to people, I talk to agents, I talk to the general people looking at buying homes. We're seeing people who are becoming more risk averse as far as the real estate market. They're looking at things. I'm not saying this is correct or warranted, but it is an outlook that I'm seeing some people have, and that is that because of the rapid rise in home values, because of the massive competitiveness from buyers, because of the low inventory, and people willing to pay, unbelievable amounts over with different conditions, like I talked about in another video, that they're saying that this portends a crash or a crash psychology or mentality that, oh, wait a minute, I don't want to get involved because I saw what happened in 2007, 8, 9, etc., and I don't want to be involved in that. So they're concerned about that. And then they're looking at, again, the risk of, well, I'm giving up all this. Not only am I paying for the home, I'm paying more than the list price. And oh, by the way, I'm having to pay all my closing costs. And in some cases, like I said in another video, to get the home, I had to do something for the seller. So that has an impact, I believe. And then people, what I saw for a number of years is when you had a multiple offer situation, people were backing on, going, I'm not getting into a bidding war again. And I think we're seeing a lot of people. I've talked to some agents who have told me that their clients have said, depending on the number of showings, things along these lines, they're having a reluctance again to get involved with that. But then they learn, hey, they don't have a choice. If they want that home, it is a bidding war. Okay, so those are some observations. And where does that lead us? Well, will buyers be leaving? Will buyers be leaving the market? So I'm hearing some talk about reduction in the number of buyers. That's because when we looked at what I said about the relos are down, I think with interest rates going up, the payments are going up and buying power is down. So that I think will have an impact as we go along. Some buyers, like I said earlier, aren't saying I can't deal with the buying conditions, with the multiple offers, the competitiveness, having to give up this, having to pay for this. It's just not what we're looking at. And so I think that we're going to see buyers abandoning the market as interest rates increase. People are getting more concerned with prices, et cetera, and what they have to give up. I think we're going to see buyers back away from the market. And I think that's going to help to level things out. But we're also seeing at the same time inventory lowering. Sellers are reluctant to sell their home and risk being homeless. I have buyers who before COVID could buy a home in the $600,000 range and sell their $425,000 home after they got a ratified contract. They could start to sell. Well, because COVID and because of their reduced income, that's no longer possible even with the current rates. So what ends up happening is that they are now holding back because they don't want to be homeless. And I've heard other people saying the same thing. Great, I can get a lot of money for my house, but I'll be homeless if I don't get a couple of offers. My first couple of offers, if I don't get through, now I'm 3 weeks and 4 weeks away down the road, and I have a 30-day or 40-day settlement. Now I'm going to be homeless. So I think this is going to not only pull buyers back, but it's going to have a bad relationship in the market as far as inventory, because people have to sell starter homes to get into other homes, and the definition of starter home has changed a lot. So will these things eventually bring balance? I think they'll eventually bring more balance. I still think we're going to have a buyer's market. I think as increases and as interest rates increase, we may get more into balance as far as buyer versus seller, and I think that all this is going to have an impact. When it's going to have an impact, I really couldn't tell you, but I think I'm seeing things head that direction. So let's discuss foreclosures. There's a current moratorium on foreclosures, but let's take a look at some numbers. The federal government has said that 20% of renters are now behind in their rent, that there are 10 million plus homeowners behind on their mortgage. Now, there is mortgage relief, there's forbearance, and forbearance is where essentially mortgage companies are tacking the mortgage back on the back end, so their mortgage is going to be longer. So there are some things that mortgage companies are doing, but the federal government has been involved. In fact, Virginia's been involved with forestalling evictions. But so what are the actions? So the actions right now were set to expire this past March 31st. The Biden administration has moved that out to now June 30th. So now they've also opened up for additional applications for forbearance, and they've extended the application period from before to allow more people to apply for mortgage forbearance. They have extended the mortgage foreclosure, okay, to June 30th. And so that all impacts it. And a lot of this is being, and I don't want to use the word pushed, but endorsed by the CDC because of the impact of our pandemic. So what also goes along with this, again, like I said, 20% of renters behind, 10 million mortgagees are behind in their mortgage, that there is mortgage forbearance and mortgage relief. But what's the impact of all that? So renters are not paying landlords. So it's great that they're not getting evicted and not having to pay rent, but the landlords, whether they be an apartment complex or somebody that owns one or two investment properties, they are not getting their money. Okay. So if you own one or two investment properties, now you have a mortgage to pay. And guess what? You're not able to pay the mortgage because the tenant's not paying you and you can't evict them. Okay. So that becomes a problem. How many people that are eligible for forbearance are going to apply for it? How many will forbearance actually help? Okay. How many will ultimately not be able to pay the mortgage because they've lost their job or their job has gone away or they've had to take a diminished role, things along these lines. So even though the mortgage has been, you've had forbearance, you still have to pay your mortgage. And if you can't pay your mortgage, when this is all over, what's going to happen? Well, you could very well get foreclosed on. And again, it may take a while to catch all this up, but will homeowners recover? Okay. Will homeowners recover? If they get foreclosed on or have to do sales, not necessarily short sales, but if they have to sell, that is going to raise inventory, which is going to help bring things back in balance. But if you go back to 2007 and 8, 9, and 10, etc., there were a lot of people that got mortgage forbearance, but they never caught up. It put off the inevitable. Okay. And not that people just used it to put off the inevitable. People felt, well, I'm going to be able to do this. And then they ended up not being able to succeed. So we had foreclosures, we had short sales. But if that happens even a little bit, it's going to increase our inventory. And I don't think that's going to put purchasers in the driver's seat. I just think it's going to bring, again, things more into balance. Okay. So again, all these factors play into things. It's all supposition on my part. It's supposition on a lot of people's parts. We're just going to have to see. But I believe that, again, things are going to come back more into balance as interest rates go up. I think we're going to get a slowing of the seller position. I don't think the purchaser is going to be in the driver's seat. But again, when we look at what's the opportunity, when I talked a second ago about foreclosures, what I probably see more of in foreclosures, not foreclosures, but possibility of foreclosures, but sales may be investment properties. This is just the world according to Worlo. The reason being is people may be able to make their mortgage payment for their home, but if they have one or two investment properties or more than that, and they've gotten some forbearance, or even if they haven't, what it comes down to is if the tenant can't pay the landlord, then the landlord, who's the one that is responsible, obviously, for the mortgage, isn't able to pay the mortgage. So I think this may come to have a big impact. That's my thought on it. Okay. I talked to Penelope Wesley from Verus Title, and Verus is now part of Fathom, and had a great conversation with her. And so one of the things that she talked about is, because we were talking about the market, and isn't it great? She said, well, let's put this in perspective. So with less inventory, and in cases where I've just looked at within a website that I subscribe to, that in all of the areas that we really cover in Northern Virginia, okay, that basically inventory, new listings year over year are down between 2 and 17%. Now, Arlington and Alexandria is up 12% and Arlington is up 40%. Okay. These are the numbers of new listings when you compare year over year, month over month. Okay. So, but what we're seeing is over the last 12 months, sales have increased. The number, if you look at what the number over the period of a year is, and that is because I think inventory was much better earlier, not great, but we weren't seeing this craziness that we're seeing now. So what's happening now is also, like I said, I think we're seeing buyers move out. So buyers are getting frustrated, so they're not willing to go out and buy, or they're worried about being homelessness because of selling one property and not being able to get another. So frustrated buyers may have been moving out of the market. Okay, there are more agents, so I think when you spread the number of sales over the number of agents, there are less sales per agent. But again, you guys, I think, are doing well. I think a lot of you, your business has increased. And I'm really proud of you for doing that and being aggressive and taking on responsibility and getting things done. I think it's marvelous. But again, overall, the number of agents and the number of sales per agent is going down. Again, is the market good? Well, again, starter homes are at a premium like all the other homes. So if people aren't able to move out of their starter home, then those starter homes aren't available for other people to start the home buying process. And again, in our area, starter home, if you look at our area starter home, that's not necessarily a starter home as far as price is concerned, but it's still in our area a starter home. So availability is down. So with that, again, it's keeping some people who want to move into the housing market, who are renters, to be able to get into that, and that becomes a problem. Fewer listings equal fewer settlements, therefore fewer sales, less agents making money overall. And again, like I said, more agents, lower percentage of sales per agent. Okay. So we've got that we have to contend with. So the market is good for a lot of us. The market is not good for some of the others. The final thing I want to talk to you about the market and how this may impact things and impact buyers. So I'm not going to go use numbers for any trust reason. I'm only going to use one number, and you'll see why. So what we're hearing, and I'm actually seeing in many cases, is sellers wanting to offer the co-op a lower commission, which is fine. The market bears what the market can bear. We don't set prices. We don't say you have to offer this or that. But I have seen and talked to different people in our office, different people in our offices, as well as other offices. And sellers are saying, hey, look, it's a great market. I want to lower the co-op. I want to not only lower your percentage for your brokerage, but what you're offering to the cooperating broker. And so people are doing that. And again, all commissions are negotiable, and we understand that. So, but I want to show some of the impact on this and how this may again impact the buyers that are coming into the market. So if the seller wants to offer a lower commission, the buyer broker, we also have to remember that that's what our brokerages are offering as compensation to the cooperating brokerage. Okay. Remember, the buyer's agency agreement is the agreement between the buyer and the buyer broker, and that is completely separate and aside from what we as listing brokers may offer in cooperation and our commission. So if the buyer broker commission is X, let's take a look at it this way. So if the co-op in Bright is X minus, let's say, 1%, and now you equal Y. This is what the offer is to the cooperating broker. So the buyer's agent is on a contract for X commission. The cooperating percentage is, let's say, X minus 1, which equals Y. So it's Y commission, okay, Y percentage of the sales price. Well, that's fine, and that's all well and good, but let's see the impact that may have and why I say that may pull people out of the market. So based on X percentage for a buyer brokerage agreement, the buyer may be on the hook for the difference. So if the buyer signs up and says, hey, I will pay you X percent on the price of the home, and the cooperating brokerage offers Y percent, okay, that offsets the X percent, but it still may require the buyer to add additional money. So, for instance, because again, we're just looking at 1% difference, you have a buyer that is now going to possibly be reluctant to pay over the sales price, have unfavorable conditions for them, and in addition, at the end of it, write a check for the broker. So, for instance, on a $600,000 home, the buyer may have to stroke a check for, let's say, 1%, that's 1% difference, which equals $6,000 that now has to in addition to everything else, pay $6,000 additional to the buyer brokerage. Okay. So if you're paying $50,000 or $30,000 or $60,000 or whatever it is over list price, you're having to put a down payment down and pay all your closing costs, plus stroke a check to your buyer brokerage. That may turn people off. That may have people go, wait a minute. So not only am I taking money out of my 401k or money out of savings or some of the money from my last sale plus money, now I'm paying you an extra amount. So with that, I think that may very well have an impact if that occurs. Again, I'm not saying it's right or wrong. It's just that may have an impact on buyers and what that happens to them. So the buyer may be priced out of the home and possibly the eventual market for having to pay an additional fee. The other rub with that is if it's a VA buyer, if it's a buyer with a VA loan, they are by law not allowed to pay that. Okay, by law, they may not be allowed to pay that. Okay, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I think that's a great thing. My feeling is, and you guys know this, that what I encourage people to do with buyer compensation is put per bright MLS or as negotiated. Okay, I think that's fair and that's correct. But anyway, what's going to happen is that the buyer broker is either going to have to change how they do business with that, or they're going to, or the agent's going to have to take a haircut on their part of the commission. Okay, so understand how that may work. So anyway, so those are my thoughts. I hope that's helpful. Feel free to share this with anybody. I'm more than happy to discuss this with any of you. I'm not saying I'm 100% right. I'm not saying I'm 100% wrong. These are just my thoughts on the market. Okay. All right, guys, talk to you later.